December 22, 1944. 11:30 a.m. Bastogne, Belgium. Frosty breaths lingered in the cold air as Lieutenant Colonel Harry Card observed 4 German officers coming toward him across the snowy ground. Their surrender flag, stark and white, stood out dramatically amid the ruined scenery. In their possession was a letter that would become legendary, a demand for capitulation, couched in the arrogant certainty of triumph. The calculus of battle was about to change, not through overwhelming troops or superior machines, but from German arrogance clashing with American resolve, and the fearless resolve of a general who refused to accept defeat. This turning point had begun 6 days before in the pre-dawn stillness of December 16, 1944. Exactly at 5:30 a.m., the forests of the Ardennes detonated with ferocity unseen on the Western Front since 1940. A barrage of 1,600 German guns unleashed a simultaneous bombardment along an 80-mile stretch, the shells screeching through frigid air at unprepared American troops. Caught in this maelstrom was Private First Class Robert Leckie of the 99th Infantry Division, who later recorded in his journal, "The ground rumbled under us. Trees shattered into fragments. Even the wind seemed to wail. We had been assured the Germans were finished. We had been misinformed. This was Operation Wacht am Rhein, Watch on the Rhine, Hitler's final, frantic effort to turn the war's direction." In utmost secrecy, the Wehrmacht gathered 410,000 soldiers, 1,400 tanks and assault guns, and 2,600 artillery pieces. This enormous army was moved at night through the thick Eifel woods, maintaining radio silence, and using horses to quietly haul supplies to avoid the sound of engines. General Major Heinz Kokott, leading the 26th Volksgrenadier Division, documented the moments before battle. Soldiers waited in wordless darkness, their breath forming clouds in the frozen air. They were aware of the stakes. This wasn't just another campaign. It was our final opportunity. Their goal was the most vulnerable section of the Allied front, 4 American divisions, thinly stretched over rugged country, many of them recently arrived or still healing from previous fights. The Germans caught the enemy off guard for a complete tactical advantage. In mere hours, American units were being overwhelmed or fleeing in disorder. The Germans, however, faced one vital constraint: speed. They had to seize the crucial crossroads at Bastogne within 2 days. 7 major highways intersected there, routes German armor needed to continue toward their principal aim, the port of Antwerp, some 125 miles distant. Without Bastogne, the entire German offensive would grind to a halt. General der Panzertruppen Heinrich Freiherr von Luttwitz commanded the 47th Panzer Corps assigned to capture Bastogne. His troops were formidable. The elite 2nd Panzer Division with 88 armored vehicles, the battle-hardened Panzer-Lehr Division with 57 tanks, and the 26th Volksgrenadier Division numbering 17,000 foot soldiers. Heading for the same target from the opposite side was the 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles. The 101st Airborne Division fielded 85 officers and 11,035 troops, amounting to 11,840 personnel. Its ranks comprised 4 infantry regiments, the 501st, 502nd, and 506th Parachute Infantry Regiments, together with the 327th Glider Infantry Regiment plus 4 battalions of artillery and numerous supporting formations. The initial units of the 501 PIR arrived in Bastogne at 11:30 p.m. on December 18. They had managed to reach the town only hours before the leading German elements. Team de Sobry, a battle group from the 10th Armored Division under Major William de Sobry, had already set up a defensive position with a roadblock at Novel 3 miles north of Bastogne. At sunrise on December 19, they encountered the German vanguard for the first time. Sergeant William McCloskey, serving as a tank commander with Team Dory, recounted the first contact. The fog was so dense that visibility was less than 50 yards. The conflict for Novel continued throughout the entire day. Team de Souris, consisting of only 15 Sherman tanks, opposed the whole 2nd Panzer Division. They managed to hold their ground for 2 days, eliminating 31 German tanks before receiving orders to pull back. On December 20th, a new leader arrived in Bastogne. Brigadier General Anthony Clement McAuliffe came to temporarily oversee the 101st Airborne in Maxwell Taylor's absence in Washington. McAuliffe's background was in artillery, and he was recognized for maintaining composure under stress. The situation board inside McAuliffe's headquarters painted a dire scene. German units advanced from 3 separate directions. December 21st broke with visibility reduced to under 100 yards. Thick fog blended with snow, producing a white cover that made travel nearly impossible. The U.S. Army Meteorological Report cited the conditions as highly unfavorable for any form of military operation. However, the weather created difficulties for both adversaries. Within Bastogne's defensive lines, ammunition supply was critically depleted. Artillery pieces were limited to firing only 10 rounds per gun daily. After the medical company was captured on December 19, virtually no medical supplies remained. 130 miles to the south in Verdun, on December 19, a completely different scenario was in progress. Inside a chilly, moist French barracks, heated solely by one pot-bellied stove, Supreme Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower convened an urgent meeting with his highest-ranking officers. Patton grinned broadly right away. "Damn, let's have the nerve to allow those bastards to make it all the way to Paris. Afterward, we'll truly entrap them and destroy them." Eisenhower's tone turned grave. "George, I require you to attack to the north. How soon can you withdraw from your current assault and shift your focus toward Bastogne?" Patton had already developed 3 distinct sets of orders for just this emergency. As Patton exited the conference, he telephoned his headquarters using the predetermined code phrase, "Play ball." That short message triggered one of the most extraordinary tactical redeployments ever seen in warfare. In only a few hours, a movement of 133,000 vehicles toward the north began. The entire Third Army 250,000 troops needed to be shifted in direction. Master Sergeant Frank Carousel, serving with the 4th Armored Maintenance Company, was on duty for 72 hours without stopping. We swapped tank track blocks as the vehicles continued moving into their positions. Soldiers' hands stuck to the chilled metal. There were incidents where layers of skin peeled away when they tried to loosen their grip, but not a single man gave up. We all understood that the paratroopers in Bastogne depended on our efforts. In Bastogne, circumstances had reached a dire state. The defensive boundary was reduced to under 16 miles. German artillery had precisely targeted each fortified position. Aid stations were packed with injured soldiers. At 11:30 a.m. on December 22, 4 German officers advanced toward the American positions carrying a white flag. When Lieutenant Colonel Ned Moore woke him and announced, "The Germans have sent representatives to demand our surrender," McAuliffe immediately replied, "Nuts." McAuliffe then composed a written answer that would go down in history for the German leader. Nuts. The American commander. When Colonel Joseph Harper brought the note to the assembled German officers, confusion arose among them. Nuts? What does that mean? Harper could not help himself. It signifies go to hell. The Germans responded to McAuliffe's bold reply with prompt and harsh action. That night, the Luftwaffe conducted its first significant bombing operation against Bastogne. The food situation had become dire. The set ration was a single kr meal per day. That amounted to around 2,800 calories when the men actually required 4,000 under the frigid conditions. December 24 delivered a mix of optimism and terror to Bastogne. One bomb struck the aid station where René Lamy served, causing a direct hit. Augusta Chui, a nurse of Congolese-Belgian descent, survived and provided continuous care for 30 hours straight after the raid. As Christmas Eve ended and Christmas Day began, Patton's Third Army pushed forward amid blizzard conditions. Patton, never adhering to conventional military approaches, called in his chaplain, Colonel James O'Neill, on December 22. "Chaplain, I want you to issue a prayer for favorable weather." The prayer was printed on 250,000 cards and handed out to every Third Army soldier. Almighty and most compassionate Father, we earnestly ask you in your abundant mercy to ease these unrelenting rains we have endured. Bestow upon us good weather for battle, whether it comes by divine favor or due to meteorological chance. The morning of December 23 broke clear and sunny. By 11:50 a.m., the air was crowded with C-47 transport aircraft. All 241 flew in flawless alignment. Parachutes started to open at 11:55 a.m. Supplies began to fall from above. However, the Germans had not remained passive. Flak guns arrayed around Bastogne began firing. The largest supply drop occurred on December 26, as 289 planes flew the Boston route. At 2:45 a.m. on Christmas Day, German artillery commenced its most intensive bombardment of Bastogne to date. For 2 hours, explosive shells battered American positions. Then, at 5:30 a.m., 18 Panzer Mark V tanks from the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division, joined by infantry clad in white, assaulted the western edge. By 10 o'clock that morning, every one of the 18 German tanks had been destroyed and was ablaze. Nearly 400 German troops were left dead amid the snow. A German officer who had been captured informed his interrogators, "Your defense was outstanding. After this morning, we realized Bastogne could not be captured." News of the relief spread throughout Bastogne rapidly. Soldiers who had been carefully counting their bullets fired off whole magazines into the sky in jubilation. Injured men in the medical stations cheered through their suffering. General McAuliffe, keeping his unflappable demeanor, merely remarked, "We're glad to see you boys." Yet for the German side, the psychological effects were shattering. General Major Cockett recorded in his journal, "The relief of Bastogne is a catastrophe, not only in terms of tactics, but also in morale. Our troops have lost faith in victory. They have witnessed American resolve, and their spirits have been crushed." A single utterance had a more devastating effect on German morale than 1,000 aerial bombardments. The initial defending force included about 18,000 men. By December 26, the 101st Airborne Division's losses from December 19 to January 6 would reach 341 dead, 1,691 injured, and 516 unaccounted for. Combat Command B from the 10th Armored Division incurred nearly 500 casualties. Between December 23 and 27, more than 34,000 Allied air sorties took place. General McAuliffe gave special praise to 19th Tactical Air Command. "If we had not received your exceptional support, our ability to withstand the siege would have failed." Throughout the encirclement, something extraordinary was taking place among German ranks. A psychological shift was unfolding, something Allied intelligence did not fully grasp until post-war. As the Bastogne defense seized global attention, Patton's relief mission marked something even greater, an operational warfare transformation. The statistics are still incredible. Over 72 hours, over 250,000 soldiers in Patton's Third Army crossed more than 100 miles of frozen routes, and moved 133,000 vehicles without encountering a major congestion. Preparation was the key. Unknown to most, Patton had rehearsed this scenario through war games for a fortnight. The medical accomplishments during the encirclement merit distinct commendation. Despite most medical staff and supplies being seized, on December 19 doctors and medics managed extraordinary survival rates. The successful resistance at Bastogne and Patton's breakthrough had results that extended far past the tactical field. Hitler's major push, intended to split Allied forces and seize Antwerp, was decisively halted. The Battle of Bastogne forged stories that live on today. McAuliffe's nuts reply became emblematic of resistance in American military legend. Patton's relief advance became a classic example taught in military academies around the globe. The concluding numbers for the Bastogne operation are still astonishing. American garrison at Bastogne began with 18,000 men, among them 11,840 from the 101st Airborne. Combat Command B, 10th Armored, fielded 40 working tanks. U.S. casualties at Bastogne were about 4,500. German units committed near Bastogne started at 25,000 to 30,000 and eventually climbed to around 55,000. Losses for German troops near Bastogne totaled over 15,000, and they lost more than 100 tanks. Patton's rescue group numbered 250,000 soldiers pivoting north. 133,000 vehicles were relocated. The advance stretched over 100 miles in icy conditions. The offensive achieved a breakthrough within 5 days. The relief of Bastogne remains evidence that liberty, when gravely imperiled, will always discover its defenders. In December 1944, those defenders carried the Screaming Eagle insignia of the 101st Airborne and the distinct triangle of Patton's Third Army. Atop a tranquil rise outside Bastogne sits a foxhole kept unchanged since December 1944. Next to it a plaque displays a straightforward message. The words, spoken by a young paratrooper whose identity is forgotten yet whose courage endures eternally. They've got us surrounded. The poor bastards. That incredible defiance, that unwillingness to concede even when defeat appeared inevitable. This exemplified the Bastogne spirit. The bastion of democracy endured. The armory of freedom prevailed, and through this victory, the free world's fate was assured.